Jambo. Jambo? Oh, that sounds like something, you've not yet heard from any of the speakers. So, my name is Moses Munguti. I'm the pre-sales manager at Kaspersky, and I'm responsible for helping customers to be able to be able to develop their cybersecurity strategies and be able to implement that. And along with me is we have a larger team from the Kenyan office where we have, our account managers. We have a support person that is located within Kenya. And please, after this, visit our stand. Let's be able to network. So for this particular presentation, we shall look at how artificial intelligence can be able to help you enhance cybersecurity, especially in light of the emerging threats. So for the benefit of time, I will not repeat any concepts that have been addressed by the speakers that have come before me, but definitely the slide deck will be available, and we can also be able to share this with you if you visit our booth or from the event organizers. But as a summary, you've heard a lot about digital adoption. And most likely, even in your organizations, probably you are currently adopting any of these digital technologies. But the main idea around this is that, as you adopt, the attack surface is broadening. And this means that we end up with, the number of threats rising. They are becoming more and more sophisticated by the day. The financial impact of these threats is also increasing. So here you can think the likes of, ransomware. Then also, some specific challenges will be globally. We still have a challenge in terms of having adequate cybersecurity professionals. Then also, there is the challenge of alert fatigue. So we have a lot of alerts. How can we be able to leverage artificial intelligence to be able to identify the most critical alerts, and then we prioritize that and be able to address those ones first. So just to ensure we are on the same page, let's align on the basics. Number one, artificial intelligence, we can take it as, artificial intelligence being covering all the attempts that either replicate or extend human capabilities. Now, I know for some of you, this part for replicate is okay, but extend human capabilities, what can come to mind to some of you will be the likes of, these super intelligent computers that one day will be able to wage war against humanity. But on the flip side, we are already seeing artificial intelligence, and we are interacting with it, and it's making our lives easier and more efficient. And we already have, some amazing technologies that, you are interacting with on a daily basis. And so, for artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, we will look at how we can be able to apply it. So before we get to the application part, let's understand what machine learning is. So just to make sure, again, we're on the same page. Machine learning, as the pioneer, Arthur Samuel put it, is a set of methods and technologies that give computers the ability to be able to learn explicitly without being programmed. So what does this translate to? Let's look at 3 examples. So it's either supervised machine learning. So here we are saying, learn by example. Ideally, how you'll teach your kid, different concepts. So we need to know the right input, the expected output, then we can be able to say, based on this learning, extrapolate. So that will be one approach. And then we'll be able to see how we can apply this. Number 2, unsupervised learning. So this will be, for example, when you are doing a research by yourself, you don't have the underlying concepts, probably. So you just go through data, and then from the data, you're supposed to identify patterns. You're supposed to be able to, classify, group the different concepts, and then be able to end up with associations. So no prior training, but we need you to be able to identify the underlying patterns. Then at the top, we have deep learning. So here we start to mimic, how the human brain works. So here we'll talk about things like artificial intelligence, we'll speak about artificial neural networks. And the main reason I have included that particular slide is because no single algorithm is able to address all the tasks that need, that will come up with the different problems that we need. And so this means that even in the different cybersecurity solutions, we need to be able to leverage the synergy of layering these different technologies. So use cases. Let's start with prevention and detection. I know we're almost getting to the festive season, and some of you might be tempted to think this is a Christmas tree. So this is not. This is actually my first mambo ni matatu. So in cybersecurity, we know there's what we know. There's what we know that we don't know. And then there's that we totally don't know that we don't know. Let's make it easier. So for those three categories, at the bottom of that pyramid, we have generic threats. So out of all the cyber threats that we have seen, actually the largest percentage is what we have already experienced. And if we have already experienced, we can be able to apply, you can be able to train machine learning algorithms, and they can be able to do a very good job at being able to prevent those particular grouping of threats. Then for the second level, it will be the evasive. So those, polymorphic, fileless attacks, we need to be able to leverage the power of behavior detection. And again, machine learning will be very instrumental in that. And then at the very top, the smallest category, advanced persistent threats. Here we are talking about skilled threat actors, a lot of resources. They can even be state-sponsored. So how can we be able to leverage artificial intelligence and be able to mitigate against this grouping of threats? And so, number one, if we look at supervised machine learning and how we can be able to apply it, especially to prevention, in this case, we just need to be able to do one thing very well. We need to be able to identify the correct data that represents the collection of threats that we need to address. Then based on that, we can be able to train the algorithm, and if we train it very well, once we reach accuracy, it means we'll be able to say, for any new object, we should be able to accurately identify, is it malicious or not? And this will be, part of the reason why, you have different cybersecurity vendors, but the effectiveness of their solutions will differ. So it's about how you train the algorithm. And from here already you can see, part of the challenges that you can have on machine learning can be how you train it. And the data that you're using, is it representative enough to ensure that you can be able to address those particular concerns? But the challenge here is we are able to address the first grouping, what we've seen before, patterns and even objects. So for us to be able to deal with evasive threats, things we've not seen before, we can now leverage the power of behavioral analysis. And so for here, an example is this one, deep learning, where we can be able to, instead of looking at something before it executes, when it's executing, now we can look at the behavior. So based on deep learning, we can be able to create associations between the different elements of whatever is happening, and this will be applied, for example, in fraud detection, in the sandbox environments, and anomaly detection. And this applies across. So if it's endpoint, network, if it's your cloud environment, the concept remains the same. Prevent, and then we can be able to proceed to detect. Another angle to this is prediction. So prediction machine learning enables us to be able to do two things very well. One of them will be threat intelligence, the other one will be security awareness. Now for threat intelligence, what we need to be able to do very well is we need to be able to collect enough representative data about the threats that exist. And this already can be a challenge, because if a cybersecurity vendor is not covering a particular region, it means they will have gaps in their security, in the intelligence that they are collecting. So definitely there are some threats that they will not be able to identify. So number one, we leverage machine learning to be able to collect all this data from diverse sources, heterogeneous sources, and then be able to make sure that we pre-process it. And at the end of the day, by the time we are telling you that a specific object is malicious, we actually need to ensure it's not a false positive, because you have a limited team and we need to make the most efficient use of their time. So once we have threat intelligence, for example, your organization can say, I just want to understand the threats that exist in my particular vertical, in my particular country, and then for those threats, give me the details. Who is the threat actor? How are they, attacking the different organizations? So now you can be able to get the tactics, techniques, procedures, and now you can even be able to do things like threat hunting. So I know a threat actor is using, ransomware attacks, and I already have the indicators of compromise. You can run them across your environment, make sure that, in case any of those endpoints has been compromised, you can be able to do something about it. You can even say, let's use threat intelligence from a different vendor and then enrich the current threat protection solutions that you have. So you have a firewall from a different vendor, you get threat intelligence in the form of feeds from a different vendor, and you're able to enrich your threat detection. So now you're being able to address those security, those gaps that you'll have in threat intelligence. Another area we can be able to apply security awareness will be, we can apply artificial intelligence will be security awareness. So most of the speakers that have gone before me, they have talked about the ability to be able to create personalized experiences. So even in security awareness, where the aim is to be able to build cyber safe behavior and be able to address those traditional challenges that we had in security awareness training, whereby the users experience boredom, they feel the training is not engaging, we are not able to follow up. So with artificial intelligence, we can now be able to create training that is very personalized, and instead of just saying, let's apply one training to everyone in this room, we should be able to assess, based on the interaction, we should be able to assess your competency level, and then based on your understanding of different topics, we can decide, do we spend more time training you on that particular component or not? And so here, artificial intelligence will be able to ensure that we can be able to offer that level of training. And for example, from this slide, you can see we have 3 trainees. Both of them are undertaking the same topic. They are being trained on exactly the same topic. But based on the interaction and based on machine learning, we can be able to decide which user requires more time to understand that particular topic. So one user might maybe take 10 minutes to complete a course. Another user can end up spending 20 minutes. So fairly very personalized training, and we can be able to address that particular challenge of traditional training. Now, in response phase, we all know no one, no matter how effective your cybersecurity controls, no one will be immune from attacks. We've even seen information security companies being breached. And so we need to also be able to ensure that we can leverage artificial intelligence to be able to ensure that in the unfortunate event that we are compromised, we have the tools, we have the processes, and we have the capability to be able to deal with that particular incident. So here we look at 2 things. One of them will be incident handling. The next one will summarize on generative AI. So for incident handling, what it does. So right now, most organizations will be thinking about things like endpoint detection and response, extended detection and response. But what exactly is that doing for your organization? The main thing that it's doing, it's being able to help you to start to formalize this incident handling process. And so you'll be able to understand, how do you prepare the different teams? How do you skill them? How do you ensure the processes are there? How do you make sure that the communication lines are there? So that in the event of an incident, you will be able to coordinate. And so here, things like having those cyber drills and being able to align the teams becomes very effective. Then for identification, in case we have something that has been flagged as potentially malicious, we need to be able to have the capacity to investigate and then be able to respond. So investigations, you can be able to rely on a threat intelligence database from a trusted cybersecurity vendor. And that definitely means that your team can be able to prioritize and focus on the most critical incidents in your environment. Then we should be able to contain. So for some of you, if I was to ask, one day, you are told over the weekend, we have 3 computers in 3 remote offices, they've been hit by ransomware. And you're supposed, where do you start from? What kind of response do you have? Is it automated? Is it manual? How can you be able to quickly reduce the overall mean time to detection and mean time to respond, so as to make sure the overall effect of that particular threat is much lower for your organization? And so here we can be able to focus on that. Last but not least, we can look at generative AI, because it's been the buzzword for this particular year. And so what are some of the offensive as well as some of the defensive use cases that we have witnessed so far. So ChatGPT is more like a chatbot, and it uses natural language processing. So you can chat it, you can interact with it the same way you will chat your friend. And the main challenge here is that it begins to be, once we are able to summarize content from a very large database, it means that we are also making it very easier for both the threat actors to be able to compromise us. So for example, these are some examples of how ChatGPT can be able to assist or enable maybe a newbie or even just a seasoned attacker to be able to just get a summary of a particular area of interest related to hacking. So for example, you put into the ChatGPT prompt that I need to be able, I need to do a penetration test to see, because you see already the website is running, for example, engines or Django, and then you want to know what will be an example of a procedure for you to undertake that particular pen testing. It will be able to give you some pointers of where you're able to start. And in some cases, when you prompt it and then maybe it flags that particular request as a request that can be able to lead to something that is potentially malicious, you just need to ask it nicely. So just re-engineer the question and it will be able to guide you. So from here, we start from the overall use case of what I want to do, then I request for the tool that can be able to do it, and then next level I say, give me a script of how I can be able to leverage this tool. So you can see it's basically making it easier. An example of malware writing. Ransomware is about encrypt, and then now be able to move the private key off from that particular device, and then be able to now, request for the ransom. And an example will be this. Start from cryptography, how can I be able to achieve encryption for some files using Python, give me the code. Okay, next thing will be, for example, show me how I can be able to move the private key from that computer to a cloud-based resource, and which cloud-based resources are there. So you see, something that could have taken a lot of time, now with ChatGPT, we are able to really take much more less time. For those who are wondering, the advanced fee scam by our colleagues from Nigeria, with ChatGPT, you can actually be able to, number one, even generate very realistic art just from a description. So you can just say, for example, I want to see a dolphin dancing, maybe what, on a train. Just a simple description, it will be able to generate for you something very realistic. And this is part of the challenge. Because even if you look at spam generation, the main challenge here is that if you are initially just looking at typos and grammatical errors, that no longer applies. So now it means we are seeing much more spam mails that will be coming up. For spear phishing, you just need to tell it what you want to do. You can even give it the context, the agency you want to achieve. It will be able to really customize it, and you'll get a very convincing email based on that context that you provide. And so, for the defensive use case, what we've seen so far, when it comes to incident response, the understanding is definitely no one will be immune. But in case you have an incident and you need to respond, you need to be able to know, to have access to a trusted database of intelligence of how you can be able, for example, to say, this particular object, is it malicious or not? And then be able to get context around it. So if it's malicious, what are the other objects that are related to it? And then can I be able to search for all these objects across the environment? And through for example, the ChatGPT API, we already have use cases for this. So investigation, and even, for example, if it's a reverse engineering of malware, through some of the APIs already, you can be able to achieve this. And this basically means that at the end of the day, we are able to have, we can be able to leverage generative AI both for good and both for the bad. And so in summary, mambo ni matatu. Number one, we need to be able to leverage artificial intelligence to improve the accuracy of detection. Number two, we need to be able to leverage artificial intelligence to accelerate your investigation. And last but not least, we need to leverage artificial intelligence to automate your response. Thank you very much for your time.